Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Big Picture. I am Grant McGaugh, CEO of 5-Star BDM, and this week, history meets innovation. We have Governor Albert Bryan Jr. He will lead the first U.S. Virgin Islands delegation to Ghana, linking the Caribbean and West Africa through trade, tourism, and technology. And it's more than a diplomatic trip. It is a signal of a new financial bridge forming across the Atlantic, from mobile money in Nairobi to blockchain in Accra to digital banking in St. Croix. Fintech is connecting economies once divided by distance. And today, me and Chris will explore how digital finance, AI, and cross-border payments are shaping the next frontier of global inclusion, and how shared history can become shared prosperity. So this isn't just about the future of money, it's about the future of connection. So let's get right into it. Chris, you like to come on screen here and introduce yourself.
Grant, what an opening that was. That was well put. I'm Chris Principe, publisher of Financial IT, and just thrilled to be here. Very interesting that the governor of the Virgin Islands was the first governor to go to Ghana on such a trip, and it's really timely because before that announcement came out, you and I had already decided that today's show would be FinTech Africa. We want to really explore the African market, and then all of a sudden the governor announces a trip. What better timing?
Great timing, great timing. So we want to get into this because you've been traveling all over the place, and the governor's trip to Ghana highlights the growing bridge, as I talked about, between the Caribbean and West Africa. We want to know, how can fintech serve as the connective tissue for trade, tourism, and financial inclusion between these two regions?
Well, let's first talk about it. First, Africa has always been high on my list of the really upcoming places. Before the pandemic, I spent a lot of time over there really exploring some of the fintech pockets of opportunity. With the pandemic, change in my ability to be able to firsthand for our viewers. I'm now back. I'm now heading back over there, being able to see and talking to a lot of people about it. So when we talk about Africa, well, first we're talking about a huge market. The population, there's 30 some odd countries, almost 50 actually, countries that make up the continent of Africa. And I hate to say it, but we have some people who think Africa is a country. I mean, ridiculous, but this is kind of the view that a lot of Americans don't have of international. Right? The other thing that I want to bring up about Africa is when you look at the globe, right? When you look at that globe on your desk, the African continent is out of proportion. It looks much smaller than it actually physically is. So let's keep that in mind also, okay? So when we talk about Africa, we're talking about a market that is dynamic right now. It's a market that has the youngest population globally. The average age in Africa is 20 years old, Grant. These young people, they have energy, they have knowledge, they understand digitally, they're able to leapfrog ahead of some things, and that's exactly what's been going on there. So we'll go through first some view of Africa. We'll go through some of the key companies that are springing up or have sprung up actually who are doing that, and we'll go through some of the things that really point out where that is.
This is important to understand. First of all, you pointed to the geographies of scale, what we have in front of us, whether you're large, whether you're small. When we're talking about finance, it really doesn't matter. We're talking about speed to market. How can we take an idea and monetize it at scale in a short period of time? This is the glory of fintech. And I tell you, by the fact that the governor is going all the way over to Ghana right now tells you how quickly this can manifest. And all the different things that we've talked about on this show come to bear. That why other countries will see the USVI as a point of interest, because it is a gateway into not just the economy in St. Croix, but the entire Caribbean economy. This is important. Now you're just talking about platform. That's the tech aspect of it, right? What does that look like, and how can we use economies that everyone understands, speaking the same language, so to speak? You talked about stablecoin at length, Chris, and how that can work, why that's important. Because when you have an agreed upon system of economy that we see, so $1 of stablecoin equals $1, no matter who owns it, no matter where it's at, whether you're over in Europe, whether you're in China, whether you are in somewhere in the South American or Caribbean basin, of course, North America as well. This is very, very important. We're seeing right now the change in scale and scope of how finance occurs throughout the world, and what companies or countries are starting to take advantage of it. I like the move that Governor Bryan is doing, because the signal is there, and it bodes well what we're doing at St. Croix Economic, the SETI case, excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. But I want to go to, because Chris, people don't know this, but maybe they do. You're a world traveler. You travel the world, all these different conferences, you see what is taking shape, and where instead of being behind, you want to be in front of the curve. This is an opportunity to get in front of the curve and be a major force in today's economic landscape. So tell us, educate us, Sir Chris.
Okay, so Grant, I'll start with a few facts first. So let's look at effects. Right now, the fintech market is valued in Africa at about $25 billion, right? That's the value of the fintech market. They're expecting that the year upon year growth up till 2030 will be over 20%. That's huge growth. So if you look at year upon year, it'll be a $100 billion market by 2030. Okay, so that's a really important thing to understand, that there is value there, right? Now, if we look at financial inclusion, over 50% of the adult population is either unbanked or underbanked, right? Which is a massive addressable market. Now, I've talked about this before. I'm a big believer that the unbanked does not need to be banked. All the unbanked needs is a simple, cheap, and fast way to pay and get paid, okay? All these other banking services, all these credit card services, are, my view, are just stealing money from the people who can least afford it. So I like the fact that there is a huge unbanked population, because unbanked doesn't mean they're not in the financial system. It doesn't mean they're not doing things all the time. And now fintech steps in and is able to give those people the ability, without a bank, to do what they need to do. And let me illustrate that with another fact, okay? Mobile penetration in Africa is over 700 million mobile subscribers. Just let it sit in for a second.
Okay.
You think those people
700 million mobile subscribers? Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Now couple that with an average median age I mentioned before of 20 years throughout Africa. The continent average age is 20 years. I mean, these are people that absolutely are comfortable with digital solutions, absolutely comfortable doing things on their phone, have never been inside a bank, nor should they be. Okay? There's no need for that. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of, I know MasterCard and Visa are just drooling at the African market. You don't need any of that. Okay? And the other big fact is in Africa, they do what we say is an infrastructural leapfrog. Okay, what does that mean? That means that they don't have to go into bricks and mortar for banks, right? They don't need the card-based system. They can jump directly to digital and mobile financial services, and they can direct from fiat currencies into crypto and stable coins. Okay, there's no barriers for them there. In the other area, there has been barriers. Yeah, the banks want to bank people. they've been a barrier to banking people, right? The credit card people, they want new customers because their markets are saturated. Yeah, but they're the barrier for people to be able to use those things. So the other thing is when you look at technology, okay, because in the past there hasn't been the ability to invest in technology for the financial institutions, for generally infrastructure in Africa. Today, it's a benefit because now they're not stuck and tied and invested in old technology. This is the biggest problem for any of the banks in the Western world or the global North, right? Is those banks have, or foundation of those banks is still technology from the 80s and 90s. Mm-hmm. They don't run on COBOL technology. The big risk away from it. Not the problem in Africa. Africa right now, all this new technology, they can just jump into it because they don't have that legacy system they have to overcome. So things that I just mentioned, market size, financial inclusion, mobile penetration, young demographics, and the ability to leapfrog. How can you not be excited about Africa? So let me talk a little bit about why I'm so excited about Africa today. And I have to say it's really because of one company. Just 2 weeks ago, I was in Las Vegas for one of the biggest shows during the year in the financial community, which is called Money 2020. Okay, mm-hmm. 35,000 people attended this show, and it is a big one, right? And I go every year. I go to Money 2020, different places it is in the world also, and have very good relationship with the Money 2020 company, right? And I get to interview and speak to and a lot of different companies. And there's been one company, I've been watching them for years and have spoken to them a number of times, been really impressed with them. But this time they actually invited their hospitality suite. And I got to spend some time, not just meeting the CEO, I got to spend some time talking with the CEO and really trying to dig into why they have been able to be so good, right? Why they're making such progress, why they're considered one of the unicorns in Africa. Okay, the name of the company is called Flutter Wave. Kind of a funny name, Flutter Wave, right? But they are a payments infrastructure giant in Africa. Okay? They provide payments for business and people to accept and send money all across Africa, and then they connect all that with globally. Okay, they have licenses in 34 countries in Africa doing this.
Okay, Chris, we're having just a small break. We're going to go to a small break right quick. We're going to come back because what you're talking about is so important. We want to make sure we dig into this and be able to take notes on what you're talking about because this could be a game changer for our audience. So we're going to go for a quick break and we'll be right back. Thank you very much.
Third Wall Street is a new emerging global capital markets formation and structured trifactor financial hub at the U.S. Third Border in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, in the Caribbean and Latin America. The new Third Wall Street is the home of the Alexander Hamilton Financial Center and named in honor of Alexander Hamilton, an American founding father, first U.S. Treasury Secretary, and architect of the U.S. financial system and modern America. Third Wall Street is located in a U.S. National Heritage Area, Opportunity Zone, and the boyhood home of Alexander Hamilton in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Island, connecting 3 financial hubs in the Americas by way of new innovative financial technology and markets: New York Wall Street South, Brickell Avenue, Miami, and Third Wall Street in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, and established the new Caribbean America's Single Economy Zone, developed by SETI Case Capital Markets. Third Wall Street will transform financial markets, improving access to capital worldwide. Visit www.thirdwallstreet.com to learn more.
The difference between influence and legacy, it's the platform that carries your voice. You're not visible because you lack talent. You're visible because your brand doesn't speak. I've built 5-star BD&M to change that. Most leaders have the expertise, but not the presence, the vision, but not the vehicle. Across 3 cities, one brand is helping leaders rise above the noise. Here in the heart of Omaha, strategy isn't left to chance. It's engineered with precision. In Omaha, we engineered your Zachner brand, AI-powered, data-driven, precise. TISA went from a local nonprofit to a national speaker in 90 days. We don't guess your brand strategy, we built it. On the shores of St. Croix, your brand takes on depth and meaning, shaped through curated retreats and legacy experiences. In St. Croix, strategy becomes soul. Our retreats don't just refine your message, they rediscover your mission. One founder rewrote his entire company story here. Funding followed 30 days later. This is where leaders remember who they were meant to be. In vibrant Miami, momentum meets amplification, transforming your voice into a movement. In Miami, your brand becomes a movement. Business development accelerators. Audience building. Joy came with an old website and an outdated company name, but she left with 5,000 followers and a waiting list. This is where you scale with soul. 3 cities, 1 mission. Your legacy ignited. It started with a thread. Let's pull it together. Stop blending and start leading. 5-Star BDM, where legacy is engineered, embodied, and ignited. Visit 5starbdm.com and book your brand audit today.
All right, I guess we are back now. We're going to continue on with this conversation with Chris. Now, Chris is a worldwide traveler. He's constantly all over the globe. I never know exactly where he's at. I think he just came back from Hong Kong. So we're going to continue to engage with him as we had some video issues earlier. But Chris, you were talking about something so important about what is taking place, and especially on the African continent. You talked about the age, 20 years old as an average. You talked about 700 million mobile subscribers on the continent. That is twice the size of the United States. And you also talked about that they don't have to deal with the legacy banking system that's been in place for a long time. They can jump into the newer technology and what you were talking about. So continue on and really back up just a little bit. Talk about this thing called Flutter. You talk, things of that nature, so we can really dig into what you're talking about.
Well, great, Grant. I appreciate that. Flutterwave is one just inspired me now to really dig back into it. But let's talk about the market again, right? So Africa generally is four regions, right? You have West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, and Northern Africa, right? Pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. But who are the leading countries when it comes to fintech in those areas? Well, the number one leading country in fintech is Nigeria by far. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I understand that to some people, the reputation or what they've heard may not be as so favorable. But let me tell you, the fintech market is on fire there. It is amazing what's going on there. And most of the leading companies in fintech are originating out of Nigeria. The government is actually providing a very stable system there. You know, they are the number one country worldwide with crypto adoption. So there's a very stable things. The number two player, by coincidence, with our favorite governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, the two player in West Africa, Ghana. You got it. It's actually is Ghana. It's another stable growing market. The Bank of Ghana, who's the regulator, is very proactive and very positive when it comes to fintech and a lot of the new things. And it's a key spot for cross-border. So the fact that our governor is going there really is very timely, and I think is excellently placed in terms of where to go. I'll go to the other side. We go to East Africa. The leader there is Kenya. Okay, and I think everybody might be familiar with M-Pesa, which is really the first mobile payment system throughout Africa. And there, you're really looking at a population. Kenyans are really in favor of fintech for everything. So they really go into it, and then it's followed in that market by Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, all strong mobile money adopters, all with governments that support digital transformation. That's an important thing. Is, you know, we have issues in this country that in the past with being open to new technology, to new things, particularly in the financial community. And yes, we saw the Genius Act and what that's done in terms of setting stable coins free and really turbocharging that market. Here in Africa, these governments are all favorable to when it comes to fintech, mobile money, and even crypto, right? So in Southern Africa, yes, South Africa is the leader, but interestingly enough, Zambia is the country that's really growing the most when it comes to this fintech market, right? South Africa, yes, it's the most mature market and it's strong in a lot of these things, and it's also home to a lot of the major banks and big investor base, right? But it's not really moving at the speed that I'm seeing in other African countries. Now, when you go to Northern Africa, the leader there is Egypt by far. Okay, they're massive population with a high internet penetration. It's a growing startup scene, and they're strong in payment and e-commerce, right? But the other country to really watch though is Morocco. It's got good regulation that gives it a stable market, and Morocco has very strong ties throughout Europe. So they can be a very interesting player going forward. So, Grant, that's kind of just a quick overview of Africa and maybe where the key spots. And, you know, maybe a couple of those countries might surprise you, but don't be surprised going forward because you'll be behind everything if you don't keep up.
Absolutely. This is important. So when we talk about fintech in Africa, we're not just talking theory, we're talking about a change that is taking place that can really lift the continent on the global stage, right? Africa has become the global testing ground for what financial innovation really looks like. And nearly half of all mobile money users in the world are on the continent. Let me say that again. Nearly half of all mobile money users in the world are on the African continent, in places where traditional banking were never reached. You always talk about the unbanked. This is what Africa is all about now. Instead of being something that's been a negative, it's a big positive because fintech has built bridges using a phone instead of a branch and a code instead of a signature. Very important. And what's powerful is that this innovation didn't start in boardrooms. It started in communities, solving real problems. Farmers needing access to credit, families sending remittances, entrepreneurs scaling across borders. And now we are seeing the rest of the world learning from the African model, from the Caribbean to Latin America. So fintech isn't just changing how money moves, it's changing who gets to move with it. And as we have seen, that the governor of the United States Virgin Islands is on his way to Ghana, because this is a game changer. And those that have the mindset and the skill set and the tool set to take advantage of it are doing it. So we're seeing this uplifts the entire human global experience when we can get everyone participating in the economy, and then we start to see that poverty level going down, and not referring to all these countries as third world or this or that. Everybody is a participant in this global economy. Is that what you're seeing, Chris, when you travel all over the world? You just came back, I think, from Hong Kong. You talked about Money 2020. You've been to a lot of these different conferences. Is Africa top of mind?
Well, I'll tell you right now, Grant, it is. And a lot of the things that you said were spot on. And to illustrate some of that, I want to just talk a little bit about the banking community in Africa, right? The banking community has really been very accepting of fintech. Not something we've seen in the rest of the world, but in Africa, we're seeing it. We're seeing partnerships with banks providing their platforms for the fintechs to work with the banks together, to be able to add to the bank services by what the fintechs can provide, which gives very fast to market products, right? We're seeing many of the banks whose venture capital arms are investing in fintech. We're seeing banks setting up their own innovation labs to help the fintechs to work more closely with them to improve mobile banking. And we're seeing banks open up their APIs, which are the connections that you use for between things inside the bank and things outside the bank. And open those up to allow the fintechs to connect directly to the bank. We're not seeing this kind of movement anywhere else in the world. What we see in the rest of the world is individual banks may decide to do this, but not regionally that they're all really in favor of doing this. Now, I told you the number one country in my view down there is Nigeria when it comes to fintech. Let's take the central bank in Nigeria for a second, right? They've been very active in providing sandbox environments so that fintech companies can connect and test out their products. That way, also central bank gets to see those products and can now decide, which things go forward, what regulation needed, what licenses might be needed, right? It's a very interactive environment for that. They're also doing payment service banks, right? So PSBs. And very controversially at the moment is the e-Naira, right? So they actually have their own central bank digital currency. Okay, the Naira is the currency of Nigeria, and the e-Naira is now the central bank digital currency. So this is a crypto that is released and done through the central bank, right? So it's really very interesting, and really they've put some regulations in place that have opened up this market. Kenya is another country doing very similar things to Nigeria. The Central Bank of Kenya has been very proactive in helping the digital fintech companies to be able to provide their services, and they are also exploring a central bank digital currency. They haven't released it yet, but they're also exploring it. And then the African Reserve Bank, I would say, one of the most prestigious government banks.
Hey, Chris, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back in a few minutes. We're going to continue along this line because it's so important what we're talking about, as we're seeing fintech change, global fintech change take place at a level unprecedented in our time. So take a minute, take a breath, get some water, and come right back. Thank you.
Follow the Brand TV broadcast host, Grant McGaw, as he visits with top executives and entrepreneurs to find out their secrets of success with their personal brand. Follow the Brand TV broadcast host as he focuses on brand development to build better relationships, bring value to your business, relationships, and career. You will enjoy listening to each episode that is tailored to speak to you directly. If you're looking for this type of clarity in terms of building your brand, you have tuned into the right station. Each episode will help you to shape a conversation in the 5-Star BDM network of 20,000 professionals and become a springboard for your corporate engagement and business opportunities. Each guest will frame their story in the areas of personal branding, business development, career development, financial empowerment, and technology innovation. Grant McGaw explains why he is the CEO and owner of his own professional career. Grant is an accomplished business leader and entrepreneur who wants to give back to individuals to grow their personal brand strategy. Tune in as he weaves his story about new possibilities, while to you exceed expectations. If you love storytelling, this show will make for fun.
SETI Case, USVI Caribbean Americas Single Economy, Case Capital Markets, Third Wall Street will help to fund the relief, recovery, and rebuilding efforts in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa throughout the Caribbean region. Hurricanes inflict a massive and disproportionate economic toll on the Caribbean, with damages often reaching hundreds of % of a country's GDP. These impacts are felt across all sectors, particularly tourism and agriculture, and have severe long-term consequences, including increased national debt and reduced long-term economic growth. Hurricanes disrupt international trade by damaging port facilities and transport networks. Exports of goods can decline by as much as 20% in the month of a strike and up to 3 months after, while imports also see significant immediate reductions. This requires an immediate mobilization and deployment of capital to government and businesses to reopen for business. Learn more at www.usvicanhelp.info.
In today's fast-paced financial landscape, access to capital is the key to success. At the heart of this revolution is Case Capital Markets, powered by SETI Case. Here, innovation and investment converge, creating a dynamic environment where businesses can thrive and reach new heights. Introducing Grant McGaw, the Senior Advisor at Case Capital Markets. Grant is a visionary leader, dedicated to connecting businesses with institutional capital and strategic funding. His expertise opens doors to game-changing investment opportunities, making him an invaluable partner for companies looking to scale and succeed in the competitive world of finance. With an impressive 25 years in technology, 9 years in healthcare, and 6 years in investment banking, Grant McGaw has a proven track record. He has successfully closed over $500 million in high-value transactions, seamlessly bridging technology, healthcare, and infrastructure with innovative financial solutions. His experience is a testament to his ability to drive success. Case Capital Markets offers businesses direct access to over 32,000 venture capital firms, private equity funds, family offices, and institutional investors. This network empowers mid-market companies with under $100 million in revenue to scale beyond their limits, unlocking unprecedented growth potential. Debt, equity, growth capital, public offerings. These are the building blocks of the future of capital access. Whether you're scaling a business, seeking investment, or exploring market expansion, Grant McGaw is your trusted partner. Together, you can unlock capital and create long-term financial success. The future belongs to those who take action. Are you ready to elevate your business?
And we are back, and we're talking about some very important discussion points about fintech on the African continent and how it correlates to what we're doing in the Caribbean, specifically in the United States Virgin Islands and St. Croix through the St. Croix Economic Development Initiative and Caribbean American Single Economy. And when we look at what's happening in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, it's not just about tech growth. It's a mindset shift is how I would say that. And these countries aren't waiting for permission to innovate. They're building systems that work for their people. And that is the real story. Local solutions with global impact. And that's what Governor Bryant is doing. And that's why it matters. His visit to Ghana isn't symbolic, it's strategic. And he's showing that the Caribbean and African world can collaborate on digital infrastructure, mobile banking, even blockchain to create an economic corridor across the Atlantic. Imagine the power of what I'm talking about, a connected financial ecosystem between Africa and the Caribbean, shared currency platforms, cross-border lending, and transparent trade flows. That's not a dream. That is a plan in motion. And it's being driven by the same spirit that built mobile money, necessity, creativity, and community trust. And that is why we have Chris here, because he's traveling the world. He's seeing this in real time. Continue talking to us about what you are seeing as the biggest trends in fintech, especially in Africa.
Well, Grant, that was a great lead-in, because what I wanted to talk a little bit about now is the similarities between the Caribbean and Africa. Okay, so one not similarity is the size of Africa. It's a market that is huge, which is one thing that the Caribbean doesn't have. But put that aside, we're looking at a lot of the same things. General young population, generally a very digital adept population, right? We're looking at multiple countries in very close together. We're looking at multiple currencies very close together. So the things that Africa is solving are the same issues that we need to look to solve in the Caribbean. So it's quite interesting. Now, I'll bring up another thing to you. In Africa, there is the African Continental Free Trade Area, right? Mm-hmm. Similar in a lot of respects to CARICOM. But what's different is that they're actually actively working on updating it right now with what they call the Protocol on Digital Trade. And this is to harmonize cross-border payment regulations, which will be a boost to fintech. We need to do the same thing in the Caribbean, right? We need somebody who will be able to pull it together and say, okay, CARICOM is a good agreement in the early 90s, mm-hmm. before the internet, before fintech, before crypto, before stable coins. Okay, none of that is taken into consideration in the CARICOM agreement because we didn't know about it then. Now, we are 35 years later, still under the same agreement. Grant, I've talked about this before, but we need to get moving and update the CARICOM agreement just like they're doing in Africa, okay? For one really big thing right there. Some of the other similarities, again, with the cross-border and the different currencies, this is where stable coins can come into play, right? Because, again, once you purchase a stable coin, if it's backed by $1, it's $1 no matter where you go with it, no matter when you go with it, right? This can help even out some of the currency issues that go on in trade between different countries. And one of the things that is sorely lacking in the Caribbean is inter-island trade. And we know there's a lot of difficulty because, you just can't drive your truck from Jamaica to Trinidad, right? It's got to go by boat or air. So, yeah, that's a challenge, right? No doubt. But these are challenges that we really need to start looking at and be able to meet. So when we look at some of these things, I think that the Caribbean can look to Africa and see they've gone about doing things and look to form more partnerships between the two regions so that they can be benefits on both sides, right? And we'll go back to stable coins for a second. Okay, look, it's cheaper, faster cross-border payment. It's a more stable store of value than local currencies. One of the issues that we're hearing in Africa on stable coins, though, is that there's a lot of the governments are concerned that they'll lose their monetary sovereignty. In other words, they'll lose control of people's money. Okay? Because if you're dealing with your local currency, the government has a certain amount of control of how much currency is in the market, what the exchange rates are, all these things, what they can restrict you from getting hard currency. And we see the same problem in the Caribbean, where a lot of the countries, restrict the ability to get hard currency even. So, I don't know, if you're in Jamaica, for instance, and you can't get US dollars, you can't buy outside of Jamaica. So it really restricts trade and the ability for people to grow their businesses and their lives. So this is one of the issues that you have. Stable coins is just the fact that governments, are just concerned that you'll lose the control of your money. Doesn't sound bad to me. What do you think?
No, 100%. Now, I've said this in the past. I'll say it again. We are on a global monopoly board. You've got to be able to play the game. And if you're restricted from playing the game, what gets you around the board to just pass go, collect $200 in order to then gain assets like property, and then houses, and then businesses like hotels. You've got to be able to do that. So if you're restricted from a financial, just getting the currency to play the game, that's a problem. So I see this as a way of taking that restriction off the table, right? Let's get a new foundation for new capital corridors to take place. Let's innovate with inclusion intentionally in mind. So we're not just moving money, we're moving opportunity. And investors are truly watching Africa, I believe, because it's a proof ground. It's proving what can happen when you take some of this friction out of the system through digital infrastructure. And the ROI isn't just financial, it is societal. It's a change maker. So I see this happening. I wanted to see it happening because I think it can be instructive to the world and signal to the world what can happen when we take friction out of the system and we start to empower people to utilize the resources that they have at their disposal, right? When you start talking about mobile banking and mobile fintech at scale. So we're building trust where traditional systems have failed. When people can send, save, and invest digitally, you unlock participation. You create a middle layer between local economy and global finance. And that is agility, financial agility that becomes more transparent and deeply human in scope because everyone can participate. You're not just on the outside looking in. You're in the game and you're actively playing. So when we look at regions like in the Caribbean, that's the playbook. That's the playbook that we are intentionally enabling and activating in the St. Croix Economic Initiative SETI case. That is what we're talking about. So we're just not looking at what's going on in Africa. We're partnering with Africa and building a network that turns shared history into shared prosperity. And we want to continue to educate people on how you can participate and make it easier. You don't have to be a financial expert. You just need to have the technology at your fingertips. We're going to take another quick break, Chris. We're going to come back. We're going to finish up this discussion that's so important for our constituents to take advantage of this global market and continue to move forward. So we'll be right back. Thank you so much.
I'm bringing electric racing to Miami. Sexy, iconic, it's happy, it's loud, it's vibrant. Miami is a city to be enjoyed. It is going to be a couple of days of culture, music, entertainment, style, sexiness, just the right amount of danger.
Absolutely stunning racing.
Watch the race and you will be hooked.
That is electrifying.
Just don't miss it. I couldn't be more excited.
Chris, we are back live. I want you to finish us off on this important discussion. This is world changing. This is real time. What is happening? Especially, we just talked about what Governor Bryan's going to be doing, the USVI taking the contingent all the way to Accra, Ghana, talking about fintech in Africa. You're on your global trip all over the world talking about what fintech is happening. These platforms are changing how human beings are transacting in the global economy. So, Chris, bring it back.
Yeah, great. Good to be back. And, you know, in the pre-production meeting, I had said that I had a press release that I had received that's pertinent to the Virgin Islands.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna share that with you guys right now. There's one of the world's leading providers of payments infrastructure, a company named TransferMate, right? They announced today that they've received 99 license, and the 99th license was given to them by the U.S. Virgin Islands. So they're now licensed to be able to do cross-border payments at scale in a trusted, compliant infrastructure with global reach. I think this is important for the company, but it's really important for the U.S. Virgin Islands. So the license just granted to a company that has 99 licenses now. They receive and pay 100 different 200 countries. This is that we over the curtain to its true potential.
Chris, we're having still some technical difficulties where your location is at, so we can't hear exactly what you're saying at this time. But what I heard what you were saying is that there's new legislation, new things that are happening licensing wise that allows these cross-border payments to take place at scale. So again, we're not just talking about fintech and how it can take place and how it can change economies at scale in Africa, and obviously in the Caribbean, and specifically in the United States Virgin Islands, St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. This is a playbook that is happening. There's an enablement that is taking place, and that we're starting to see that the chessboard is changing, so to speak, and that we are moving forward in what is so important, that we have our constituents to take place. And you brought up another thing, trust. Now we have a trusted platform, and I think investors, they pay attention to that. Do we have a trusted platform to truly get across these economies at scale? You don't have to go through an intermediary. You can do business directly. I think that's so important when you talk about cross-border payment innovations and African trade. I would say it like that. So I want to make sure your audio is back. Can you lead into what I am talking about?
Yeah, Grant, and I apologize, but I hope it's sounding a little bit better now.
Yes.
Okay. What I had said is there's a company named TransferMate that received from the Virgin Islands a license to be able to do cross-border payments, and they're one of the largest companies in cross-border payments. They work in over 200 countries and in 140 different currencies. So these are the kind of connections that we need in the region to be able to be on par with the rest of the world. So the press release came out today that the U.S. Virgin Islands granted a license to TransferMate. It's the 99th license that TransferMate holds in different countries around the world. So I thought that that was a little significant in light of our conversation today.
100%, 100%. That again, it's about being able to play the game. You take the friction off of the board. You know, you were saying earlier about traditional banking system and how it operates, and that you just can't pull into a branch when you're out in Africa and do business. Where now you can with mobile banking. But now you have platforms that now encourages mobile banking, not being a deterrent. This is big. So if you have something that can then be transformed into a currency that is recognized in the global scale, this opens up markets worldwide. So I like the licensing model that you're talking about. We need to really lean in on that, find more information about that so we can participate. And in light of what has happened in Jamaica with the big storm and how it has devastated a big part of the island, being able to get resources, logistics, and capital into the region is so important. So when you start looking at these types of platforms that we've seen, even when the world has devastation, like with COVID, it changes how we play the game. And it actually, at the end of the day, makes it a little easier and a little better, even though we don't want to encourage these types of things. But we've got to start using our innovation and our technologies to do things quicker, better, faster, and help people that need these resources in a speedy way. And I keep coming back to that. Speed to market is what is going to happen, and how you can transform these things in a higher level. Give us your last takeaway from all these experiences, what you see that's happening between these cross-border payment systems.
Well, Graham, what I'd like to do is just give you what I think the future for Africa is, because I think it's also relevant that the future would be similar in the Caribbean, right? So I think in Africa, what we're going to see going forward is going to be some consolidation of the fintech market. You know, in other words, there'll be some mergers of companies, there'll be some acquisitions. The banks, I think, will be players in some of those acquisitions. And I think the whole positive side about it is just to be the growth of the technology base, right? I think you're also going to see more specialization, right? Mm-hmm. So this is where fintechs go beyond payments and start getting into other verticals such as agriculture, healthcare, and education. The same kind of things that we'd like to see in the Caribbean, right? I think we're also going to see in Africa regionalization, okay, where your success will depend more on your understanding and adapting to each behavior in each country than anything else. And again, I look at, I think that mirrors the Caribbean, where yes, the islands are very close, but there are cultural things that are different in each island. There's, society things that are different in each island. And those things need to be taken into consideration when you're looking to adapt. Now, you brought the
We temporarily have lost you, Chris. Well, I see where you're going with these types of things, and we've got to understand that all of this is being deployed at scale, and we have newer technologies like AI that's being deployed across the African fintech market as well for smarter credit scoring. That's important. Fraud detection, super important. Now you've uplifted the trust layer. Trust is really the biggest deterrent. You've got to be able to trust 2 points of interest where you're giving, another entity is receiving, and vice versa. So if you've got that trust layer nailed, now you start to look at small business or small medium enterprises in both Africa and in Caribbean economies, and how they can utilize these solutions in entrepreneurial and economic trade and tourism across the Atlantic. This is a true game changer. This is, again, it's a way of taking friction out of the system and making it easier, better, faster to do business. You have alternatives where you did not have those before. So we want to continue along these lines. We want to show people how to do business, whether you are in the Caribbean, whether you're operating through CARICOM, where you're operating through the USVI and in St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, understanding that is the territory of the United States. So you have the U.S. banking system behind it, and you have specific laws in place that no other territory has in the island that you could take advantage of, like the Jones Act. And I encourage you to look these things up. Jones, Jones Act. It gives a lot of economic incentives and tax breaks that you can't get anywhere else in the U.S. and even on the global stage when you do business through the United States Virgin Islands. And what a lot of people don't know, it has one of the most robust telecommunication networks in the world that was built out. Cable and Wireless did this years ago, and we can utilize this same platform to stand up a financial marketplace that can rival things like you see in the New York Exchange and other locations, because it's about speed and be able to communicate value in a very, very speedy way. So I want to encourage everybody to look up these things. Come back next week. We're going to have Chris live. He's going to have his audio and his video ready to go, because this kind of information is so important. So I want to encourage everybody to continue to work with us, and I can't wait to continue to work with each and every one of you. And thanks again for being on the show. Goodbye.
Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel. Our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world. All in one place, rtv.network.